Hey class, welcome back. So, we've put together this computer. We have the CPU, we have the RAM, we have the motherboard, the hard drive, the power supply, we have a graphics card. We also have this part, which I didn't put in the last video. This is the NIC, the network interface card. Gives us our Ethernet port to be able to get onto the internet. So this is what a computer looks like generally in a desktop computer, but what does it look like in a laptop? Everything's so much smaller. Everything's together, and it's falling apart. So this is a desktop, and it's a little bit of an old desktop. What does it look like in a laptop? So let me move all this aside here. And here I have a student laptop, and everything is much smaller. I mean, this whole thing fits in the space of just that motherboard. So what does it look like on the inside? Well, the inside looks a bit like this. Now, some of you might have an updated version of the student laptops, but they're all pretty much the same. So we still have a motherboard. This green section here is the motherboard, and I've labeled some of the different parts. And we see here, this is the CPU. This tiny little CPU sitting there, compared to our old one, is even faster than the CPU that I had in that big gaming laptop, or the big gaming computer, sorry. And it's able to hold, and it's able to run quite a bit faster, even though it's so much smaller. And the RAM, remember this big old RAM that we had? This RAM right here is about the same amount of RAM as these 4 little chips soldered onto the board. And remember this big old hard drive right here, this guy holds 1,000 megabytes. This teeny tiny little chip right here, just about the size of my index finger nail there, it holds 32 gigabytes. It holds 32 times the amount of information that this big drive did in that tiny little chip right there. Just like on the other computer, our motherboard has the inputs and outputs, USB, HDMI, and others. We have the battery here, which is part of the power supply. And that network interface card is now shrunk down to these tiny little card. It sits over here on a little ribbon cable. And it sits over here, and this gives us our Wi-Fi and all the information that we need to connect to the internet. We even have little speakers that sit in the corners of your laptop here, and those speakers give you the sound outputs from your computer. So that big computer that we built before is now into and compressed into all of these small little parts. And your phone does the same thing, and it shrinks it even more. And it's able to cram all of this information, all these things, into an even smaller package. This is one of my favorite things. So this is a motherboard here, the same one that's from the student laptop. But take a look at the back of this. I think this is really cool looking. All those little lines, all those little traces, each one of those little light green lines is basically like a little cable bringing information from one corner of the motherboard, one little component, to another one. And all these little bumps here that you see, these are all different types of electronic components that help the motherboard communicate with the other pieces. I think this is really cool, really fun to see the inside of your student laptops. All right, so now we have to get the collage done, and that will be your assignment for today. Take a look at the worksheets as well, also up in Canvas, and we're going to have a PDF to help you answer more questions.